It gives me great pleasure now to introduce our President, Geraldine O'Brien. Geraldine is a Leitrim woman who has lived for many years in Clare, a teacher of home economics and computer science, a graduate of St. Angela's College, Sligo, now teaching in St. Joseph's Community School, Kilkee, County Clare. Minister, you might have known Geraldine as a tough and determined woman during the negotiations with the Department of Education. But you should also know she is courteous and kind. Her face always lights up when talking about her students. She is also passionate about her teaching and is a true professional. She has served the Union well. I introduce to you our President, Geraldine O'Brien.
Thank you, Donald. Minister, distinguished guests, colleagues, friends, welcome to the 102nd ASTI Annual Convention. It's hard to believe it's almost a year since our 2023 President, the late Miriam, stood at this podium and delivered a heartfelt address about the value of teaching, teachers, and education, which was greeted with rapturous applause. It has been humbling to take up the mantle from Miriam, a teacher, an ASTI stalwart, a colleague and friend to so many in this room. She inspired many through the great courage she demonstrated during her illness, which she bravely bore. It was a privilege for me to serve as Vice President with Miriam, and I benefited greatly from her wisdom, her integrity, her sense of decency and principle. Miriam worked tirelessly throughout her career of some 40 years to better the working conditions of teachers and improve educational opportunities for her students. In this context, I have chosen valuing teachers, valuing education as my theme for this address. In the context of valuing education, it would be very remiss of me to let this occasion pass without mentioning Donogh O'Malley, Minister for Education from 1966 to 1968. Shortly after, Minister O'Malley was appointed on the 10th of September 1966. In his address to a dinner of the National Union of Journalists, he announced that from 1969 onwards, all education up to the completion of post-primary intermediate certificate would be available to all families without cost. O'Malley knew that without significant investment, the vision for free education would be but a dream. Many have said O'Malley's extension of education, changing Ireland from a country where the majority were schooled only to the age of 14, to a country with universal secondary school education, indirectly led to the Celtic Tiger and the boom of the 1990s and the 2000s. Indeed, in recognition of this, the OECD report that by raising employment and labour quality, the increased educational attainment in Ireland since the 1970s contributed 2.1% per annum to the economic growth over the period from 1994 to 2003. It's also estimated that had the educational attainment of the Irish population remained at its 1980 level, national income per head would be 20% below its current level. Valuing education matters, Minister. Valuing education really matters. We acknowledge that you, Minister Foley, from the same province, on October the 11th, 2023, announced some 67 million funding for free school books and classroom resources for junior cycle students. This is estimated to be worth over €310 per student and will extend free school books to more than 210,000 second-level students up to the end of junior cycle. As with any new initiative, schools need resources. Schools need resources and supports to implement this new scheme. We ask you, Minister, to ensure that the concerns of principals are addressed in this regard. Please know that teachers value education, and sound investment in education is always appreciated by them. I'll return to the topic of investment in education later. In the midst of a chronic teacher shortage, the question must be asked: why are our teacher graduates going abroad? Is it because they do not feel valued? Is it because they can't afford to live here? Minister, we in the ASTI were very disappointed when we learned that the Department of Education had not sought any funding from the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform to induce teachers back from countries such as Dubai and the United Arab Emirates. Currently, on returning to Ireland, they must recommence their careers in Ireland at the bottom of the teacher's pay scale. That is, irrespective of their significant experience abroad. Significant experience attained in teaching diverse curricula. Minister, Irish teachers returning from jurisdictions such as Dubai must be awarded full incremental credit for their service abroad. They must be awarded this incremental credit if they are to choose to stay in the teaching profession. They literally cannot afford to live here when they are put back on the point of the salary scale they were appointed to years previously. The ASTI has long advocated for a scheme to be introduced to accommodate these teachers. Currently, no incremental credit is provided for their service, which is contrary to what happens to teachers returning from EU schools, for instance. Our primary school teaching colleagues returning from jurisdictions such as Dubai are awarded incremental credit for their service abroad. This anomaly must be addressed. Minister, second-level schools can't get teachers. They can't get teachers, so treat our teachers fairly and equitably in their pay arrangements. These teachers must also have access to full-time permanent positions, rather than facing the prospect of returning to part-time or short-term teaching jobs. Valuing teaching is valuing education. Valuing teachers is valuing education. This brings me to the foremost issue plaguing our profession: the unrelenting burden of teacher workload. The intensification of teacher workload has now reached unprecedented levels, placing undue stress and strain on classroom practitioners across second-level schools. The work of teachers has changed significantly over the past 15 years and has increased exponentially over the last 5 years. The role and the workload of the teacher has expanded. This has been exacerbated by initiative overload in education and by government policies that tie teachers into bureaucratic processes which have nothing to do with improving students' education. Deteriorating working conditions, overwhelming workloads, and stifling bureaucracy are pushing teachers out of the profession they love. Research commissioned by the ASTI in 2018 confirmed that teachers' average working week was 40 hours plus. That doesn't include supervision and substitution. It doesn't include spare time spent by teachers on extracurricular activities. It doesn't include planning and prep. Research from the Economic and Social Research Institute, the ESRI, points to the importance of education in encouraging young people to volunteer in and with their communities and engage in extracurricular activities. The research also shows that young people who were involved in after-school activities as children and teenagers are also much more civically and politically engaged later in life. Irish schools have a particularly strong tradition of providing extracurricular activities. And it is clear that such provision scaffolds many young people's integration into their communities and enables them to develop, to forge, and to maintain friendships outside of their immediate peer group. Schools' extracurricular activities, such as sport and games, the arts and cultural activities, community and volunteering, well-being projects, and more, are part and parcel of the local fabric of life across the country. Such activities depends on dedicated teachers, on experienced teachers. However, teachers are increasingly stating that their workload, compounded by ongoing curriculum innovation, supervision and substitution duties, is such that they are no longer in a position to engage in extracurricular activities. Minister, when the bucket is full, the bucket is full. Nothing further can be added to the bucket until something is removed. Currently, the bucket is overflowing. We must all advocate for measures to alleviate this burden. Measures which will ensure that teachers have the time and the resources necessary to deliver quality, holistic education to our students. Teachers' workload and work intensity are impacting negatively on teaching, teacher well-being, on teaching and learning, and on teacher attrition. As a matter of urgency, we need a reduction in Croke Park hours, Haddington Road hours, and an opt-out scheme for supervision and substitution work. Valuing teachers will give us the education system we need and the education system we want. The OECD Programme for International Assessment, PISA. This study provides overwhelming evidence that second-level teachers in Ireland rose to the enormous challenge presented by the global pandemic, ensuring students' education was prioritised and protected. The study, undertaken in 2022 and published in December 2023, shows that 15-year-olds in Ireland ranked first out of 37 OECD countries in reading literacy. Ireland ranked 7th out of 37 countries when it comes to performance in maths, and 8th in science. Second-level schools in Ireland are consistently striving to provide a high-quality and highly equitable education service to young people, despite the serious underfunding and under-resourcing. The latest OECD PISA report is the first large-scale study of student performance since the pandemic. Prior to this, PISA was last carried out in 2018. While internationally, many countries saw an unprecedented drop in performance between 2022 and 2018. Students in Ireland, their performance in reading remained stable and it increased in science. A decline in mathematics for Ireland was much less than the OECD country average. Ireland is one of the 10 countries highlighted in the PISA report for high levels of equity for students. This means that parents can be assured of a high-quality education for their students, regardless of the socioeconomic status and the type of school they attend. Teachers in Ireland place a premium value on fairness and equity for their students. Fairness and equity for all students. In March 2020, teachers transformed how they worked almost overnight so as to ensure that their students were shielded and supported insofar as was possible. When schools reopened, teachers prioritised making up for the disruption of school closures and helping students to get back on track and to get their lives back in order again. For many teachers, the pandemic years were the most difficult and the most traumatic of their careers to date. Students, they also experienced significant disturbance and stress at a particularly important stage in their lives. However, supported by their teachers, they demonstrated extraordinary resilience and tolerance, and we are immensely proud of them. These efforts are borne out by Ireland's scores in PISA 2022. Speaking of the pandemic, Minister, I do wish to acknowledge your baptism of fire, entering office during a once-in-a-century global pandemic. Minister, together with the other stakeholders in education, the students, the parents, and the management bodies, we all work together for the common good. I also wish to acknowledge the role that our General Secretary, Kieran Christie, played in that process. The OECD PISA 2022 report affirms the work of all those in education during the pandemic. However, it comes against the background of Ireland's abysmal record of funding for education. Another OECD report, Education at a Glance 2023, ranks Ireland in last place out of 36 OECD countries for investment in education as a percentage of gross domestic product, GDP. It's a ranking we've held for many years, a ranking we would like to cast aside. In 2020, the year analysed in the latest Education at a Glance report, Ireland invested a mere 1% of GDP in second-level education, compared to the OECD average of 2% and the EU average of 1.9%. School communities go to extraordinary lengths to ensure access to inclusive, high-quality education. The government must support this. They must support this with adequate funding. Underinvestment in second-level education is a very real threat to our high-quality education service. Donna O'Malley's era was that of the textbook, the copybook, and the blackboard. In contrast, Minister Foley, your era is that of the digital pen, the interactive whiteboard, and AI. The eruption of digital technology continued over the last 2 years with the sudden visibility of generative AI applications such as ChatGPT. For educators, AI challenges a number of educational activities, such as traditional models of homework, assignments and the assessment of assignments. The use of AI and digital technologies in education may hold significant promise. Enhanced educational objectives may become a reality with the support of technology, provided that teachers and learners are given the right conditions to use such technologies. In our 2024 Red Sea survey on digital technologies, teachers were broadly, by and large, positive about AI in education. However, approximately 1/4 of all teachers surveyed identified access to computer devices, technical support, technical maintenance as very poor. 1 in 4 teachers have daily problems with computer room availability, the simple availability of a computer room, while around 1 in 7 experience daily issues with technology assistance, technical assistance, and internet connectivity and internet speed. The ASTI also found that 91% of teachers want the Department of Education to provide guidance on the use of AI in schools. We welcome your statement, Minister, that thus this will happen. The Department must play a proactive role in ensuring there is a plan in place for the development and the use of AI in education. This plan must include consideration of all potential consequences for students, their development as human beings, their right to safety and privacy, and much more. The impact on teachers must also be prioritised, including protecting the relational nature of teaching, teachers' workload and work intensity, access to quality CPD, teachers' right to safety and privacy, and the safeguarding of intellectual property created by teachers and for teachers in the classroom. Finally, the resources must be put in place, and these include funding of equipment, professional development, and technical support. Funding must be available for all of those. If education in Ireland is to keep in step and ahead, as happened in the OECD report, with the rest of the world. In December 2023, I expressed my dismay, Minister, at your shock announcement that the 2024 Leaving Certificate oral exams would take place during students' Easter break. It was always understood by teachers and students that the holding of the oral exams at Easter during the COVID pandemic was due to a public health emergency. And we have we in the ASTI have consistently advocated to the pre-pandemic status quo, a return to that status quo. Students' representatives also appealed to you, Minister, to revert to pre-pandemic arrangements. The ASTI welcomed the call from the ISSU that oral examinations revert to term time, and we concur with their statement that the Easter break is an important time for students to take a break, have a rest. The ASTI has been consistent in that position. Rather than alleviate pressure on students, the holding of the oral examinations at Easter time increases pressure. It increases pressure in particular for those students taking more than one oral exam in this very short period. This morning, during the debate of motions, it was said by speakers, students had an oral Irish on a Saturday, a French on a Sunday, and German on a Monday. Where is teacher well-being there? I ask you, Minister, and I won't ask you anything that I won't ask myself in a moment. Would you like to have done 3 oral examinations during your Easter break when you were back in secondary school? Three orals on consecutive days to get into the mindset, to get into the frame of ag smaoineamh as Gaeilge, or thinking through French, or thinking through German. I only took 2, oral French and oral Irish, but I think if I had been asked to do them on 2 consecutive days, I would have needed to have been resuscitated. The ASTI was given a commitment that research commissioned by the State Exams Commission would form the basis of any decision in relation to the 2024 orals. Despite all this, an announcement was made without consultation with the teacher unions and in the absence of the publication of the commissioned research. We were bitterly disappointed about this. No education-based reason has been presented for this decision. The Easter break is an important time for students to take a step back, take stock of where they are in their preparation for their Leaving Cert. Students deserve to have their expected break at Easter before they gear up for their final written examination in June. In the context of the Minister's plan for the redevelopment of Senior Cycle, this decision was extremely ill-judged. International research shows that effective curriculum change requires collaboration and consultation with teachers, as well as teachers' trust in the change process. Teachers, as practitioners in their classrooms, are agents of change. Those of us who are more seasoned practitioners have spent our careers implementing new curricula and many other changes. Teachers know what works best in each of their subject areas. What works best for students? What works best for students going through the system who are navigating complex lives both within and outside of the school day? Everybody in this room, we are all aware of the Leaving Cert reputation worldwide, a reputation for excellence. This deserved reputation is based on a high-quality education system characterised by a broad curriculum, external assessment, and a strong focus in schools on the holistic well-being of the student. In any change process, we must maintain this. We must maintain this to maintain the integrity of the current Leaving Cert. Teachers are the professional practitioners, as demonstrated by the 2022 PISA. They have their students' best interests at heart. In May 22, Minister Foley, you set out an ambitious programme for the redevelopment of senior cycle, guided by the vision of a senior cycle that delivers equity and excellence for all. You stated, Minister, and I'm quoting from you, that you look forward to working collaboratively with all our partners across the education sector to achieve our shared vision of excellence and equity and enriching our students' expectations in line with senior cycle development. While there is much to welcome about these long-awaited changes, teachers continue to have some serious concerns. Concerns about aspects of your proposal and their potential impact on teaching and learning. I wish to acknowledge that you have addressed some of our concerns in a meaningful way, displaying objectivity and good judgment. However, notwithstanding this, Minister, the ASTI has a number of outstanding concerns, including depth of treatment of subject specifications and the impact in particular of AI on the assessment of additional components. Science teachers, university lecturers, they have flagged significant concerns. Concerns over fairness of planned reforms, reimaginings, redevelopments for students attending less affluent schools. For instance, in the case of physics, chemistry, and biology, students will be required to conduct research and investigations in science laboratories. Lecturers have questioned the availability of adequate laboratory equipment, adequate resources in schools for all students undertaking these projects. They have warned and cautioned of a widening of the social divide within schools and also between free charging schools that have additional resources of income and JET schools that cater for students from disadvantaged backgrounds. It will require massive investment to bring all labs in all schools throughout the country up to the required standard. This is to ensure equity of opportunity in education so that all children and young people are supported to fulfill their potential. It is also vital that all schools are funded properly so that the Leaving Certificate candidates can perform to the best of their ability. One of the reasons the Leaving Certificate has such a high level of public trust is down to the perception that it is fair. It is fair for all students. Students, at least on the day of assessment, are on a level playing field. Anya Hyland speaks about the achievement gap. The gap between the advantaged and the disadvantaged. And while the gap continues to exist, she has concerns. It has narrowed substantially in recent decades. This is borne out by the OECD studies, which demonstrates that Ireland has a high school completion rate and a high transfer to further education. Of course, more needs to be done. One factor which, according to Professor Hyland, has helped to narrow the achievement gap has been the fact that all students have access to the same curriculum. This includes their teachers' access to the same information about depth of treatment and assessment, regardless of the type of school they are teaching in and the social background of the students attending the school. In other words, ensuring access to the same specification details for all syllabi, guidelines and information handbooks, sample exam papers and marking schemes, all of these contribute to providing students with a level playing field, to providing students with equality of access. Any change, redevelopment, revision of senior cycle curriculum must increase, not reduce, equity for all students. Change can have unintended consequences. Investing in education is not only about funding. It's about valuing and respecting pedagogical expertise and involving teachers in the decision-making process. Susan Hopgood, President of EI International, offers some advice for those shaping education policy. The future rests with our teachers. Stand with us. Ensure teachers are central figures in dialogue and decision. Listening to teachers is valuing teachers, valuing education. In conclusion, in the era of acronyms such as CBAs, AACs, I'll conclude instead with 5 Rs. Minister, recognise that teachers value education and have their students' best interests at heart. Minister, resource schools properly so that teachers can do their jobs to the very best of their ability and students can thrive. Minister, reduce teachers' workload. Minister, redouble efforts to recruit and retain the best in the teaching profession. Respect the concerns raised by classroom teachers on curriculum change. Everyone in this room wants improvement and progress. Let's get it right. Míle buíochas as éisleam.